Would y'all help me welcome Don Graves?
It's a joy to be here and a privilege to be with a bunch of pilgrims. Where to start? There's so many things to talk about. Number one, I love my country.
Amen.
Amen.
It's got the greatest flag in the world. It's got the greatest history. When you stop to think of where we were, where we've come from. But I'll tell you about the greatest generation. Do we have any greatest generation here? Right there. You'll know what I'm talking about. As you go through the Great Depression, I was born in 1925. I remember the Depression very well. Born and raised in Detroit, one of the poorest cities during the Depression. And I can remember my mother. She had bought a beautiful white set of, if you remember the wicker furniture, it was reasonably priced. A lot of people had it. And she was proud of it in our apartment. My dad was working at Henry Ford's, just down the road, Woodward Avenue. Then all of a sudden he's fixing his lunch. He takes off for work on the second shift. 1 hour later he came back, threw his lunch on the table, and he said 3,500 of us were sent home and not to expect a return. The Depression was on. Everything shut down. Nobody got any money unless you worked for the city, the county, the state, and the government. The only ones that had money. I can remember about 2 days after this happened, my father took off. Someone knocked at the door, and she went to the door, and there was a deputy sheriff standing there. And he had 2 furniture movers with him. And she let them in, and they went and took all of her furniture out, loaded it up in a van, and took off back to the store. They knew she couldn't pay for it. That happened all over. People lost a lot of stuff. You know, folks, what you don't have, you don't miss. So the greatest generation kids didn't whine and cry because we didn't have a lot of stuff. We never had it in the first place. I can remember my brother and I, my 2 sisters, we gathered around for just after supper, and my dad was sitting there. My mother, she was sort of a spokesperson. She said, "We're going to have to board you kids out. We can't afford to keep you." That happened a lot. County paid for the kids being in, and usually it was a widow or it was a woman who was never married. And we all had fun doing that. We really did. But we were away from our parents for about a year, and then all of a sudden, they came and got us. But I can remember that we never were church. We didn't go to church. Depression kids in the big cities. We didn't spend time at church because we were ashamed to be there. We were ashamed of what we had on. Our mothers would take our clothes and spit polish them and clean them and do everything they could with the old hot plate iron. Never really looked good. We didn't go to church. I never really prayed in my life. Well, let's hurry along. Now I'm 16 years old. There are three of us buddies. 3 of us went off. I went in the Marines, Johnny Loftus went in the Navy, and Stanley went off in the RCEF because we really didn't have a lot of Air Force at the time, or Air Corps. We're sitting in an old car in front of my house in Detroit. It is December 8th, day after Pearl Harbor. And we're sitting there listening to the big bands. Got a blanket around us, it's cold. We have our hats on, jackets. Then all of a sudden the program stopped. And the announcer got on and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this broadcast the President of the United States is going to speak to the nation. And I heard this speech. I've gone through a lot of presidents. I've never heard this speech so great. Never before or after. I'll never forget it. And he well remembers it. And some of you have probably heard it. This is what he said. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked upon by the naval and armed forces of the Empire of Japan. I interpret the will of Congress and of the people, no matter how long it may take. We shall gain triumph and victory, so help us God. Greatest speech I ever heard. I said to my two buddies, I'm skipping school tomorrow and I'm going down to the Marine Corps office and I'm going to join the Marine Corps. My father was in the First World War in the Marines. He told me all about it. They said, you can't, you're only 16. You got to be 17. I said, I'll go down there and get the papers, bring it back to my mother and dad, they'll sign it. They said, your mom won't sign it. We know, she won't sign that paper. Next morning I got up and I told my siblings, I said, don't you kids tell Mom anything about this, and I took off downtown Detroit. And wound up in the Federal Village, walked up on the third or fourth floor, and there was a gunny sergeant in the doorway, and he met me. He said, young man, what can I do for you? And I said, I want to join up. He said, how old are you? I said, 16. He said, I can't take you. You've got to be 17 years old. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a piece of paper. You take this to your mother and father, and when you're 17, you bring that, well, as soon as they sign that paper, you get 17. You come down here and you see me, and we can do business. Are you willing to do that? I said, yes, sir. I took the paper, went home, and you know, folks, I was so excited, I ran all the way home. I forgot I skipped school. Walked in, gave my mother the paper. She says, what are you doing home? Well, I give her some excuses, you know, and she bawled me out, you know. She says, well, you're wasting your time because I'm not going to sign those papers. I went through one already, and I'm not going through another one. I'm not going to do this. You're going to stay in school. Now, you got to sign those papers. She said, throw them away. I went in the dining room, tucked them under some papers in the buffet drawer. 6 months later, I was 17. We just had a small little party. And I went and got that paper out and I took it in. My father was there. And I said, Mom and Dad, you got to sign this paper. I'm going to go off in the Marine Corps. My mother said, where'd you get this paper? And I gave her some excuses. Well, she says, again, you're wasting your time because I'm not going to go through this. Forget it. My dad said, Vera, listen to me. The boy quit school. He's doing odd jobs. He could turn out to be a bum. And I did this to my mother. Just give me the paper. I gave her the paper. She signed it. He signed it. I took off downtown. Sergeant met me again. There were other kids sitting out there. And I walked in with the papers. He says, beautiful. He said, now I'm going to tell you something. Before you go home, see that door over there? I said, yes, sir. He said, you're going to go in that door, and you're going to meet a Navy doctor. And he's going to check you over inside and out from the top of your head to the tip of your toe, and you ain't never going to forget it. And folks, I still remember it, and so does he. Still remember it. Well, I passed. I came out. He said, go home. Tell your mother and father that I will give them a call in 2 weeks. They'll take you down to the train station. We'll have a ceremony. We'll go off to San Diego, Marine Corps Base, boot camp. I said, yes, sir, and I took off. Got their call. They took me down to the train station. There were about 12 or 13 of us teenagers. We were all standing in a row. Folks were all in the back. He said, before we do anything here, I want you to do one final thing for me. I want you to go back to your parents and your siblings, and I want you to say goodbye, and I want you back here in 3.5 minutes. Zoom! We went back there, boo-hoo, cried, everything, came back, stood in line. We stood at attention. We pledged allegiance. We swore an oath. And all of us in the room saying, God bless America. And then we loaded up and took off. I'm going to hurry through this. It was a boot camp. I'll never forget those 8 weeks. Made a young man out of me. Took the cockiness out of me. Now there's a difference between young men that go in the Marine Corps or Navy or Army, whichever, but especially in the Marine Corps. They have a tendency today to whine and cry. Now we have a third discharge paper in the Marine Corps. It's called undesirable. Didn't happen during the Second World War, folks. When you had tears in your eyes, the old guy would walk up and stick his nose in your face. Oh, do I see a tear in your eye there? Suck it up! Straighten up! Be a man! My gosh, we had to do it. Now that's the kind of kids we were. And that's what we were taught. And the reason we went off in the Marine, I say the Marine Corps, and there was no draft on just yet. Every one of us kids that stood in line with me, we went in there because we loved our family, we loved our pride, we loved everything about America. We believed and we were taught at school that we had the most beautiful country in the world. And nobody was going to come and take it away from us. And some of these so-called politicians ought to pack up and go to Russia and see how they like that.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, let's hurry along. Enough of politics. Can't help it though. I'm ticked off. Are you?
Yes. Yes.
Right. You better with those uniforms on. All right, I joined the 2nd Anti-Tank Battalion. I drove a Dodge pickup truck with 3 men in the back. I was the driver. Right next to my head was the 37 millimeter anti-tank gun. And we were taught how to knock out tanks. Well, we were all set to go and get on one of the islands. Then we got the word that it won't work, they're going to break us up. The previous tanks we had bogged down. Couldn't use them. The Japanese took their old tanks and they burrowed them down and used them for artillery. So they broke us up. They broke the Marine Raiders up. They broke the paratroopers up. And we all went back to the States after and helped form the 5th Marine Division at Camp Pendleton. This division was designed by President Roosevelt and my boss, Admiral Nimitz. They had a meeting. MacArthur was there. I can't tell you who else. An admiral told us this. I spoke, I asked for questions, and the admiral stood up and he said, fellas, he said, I spent the entire war at the Pentagon. I never boarded ship. He said, President wanted to know what the mortality rate would be to take and secure Iwo Jima. Now that was Harry Truman. And they sent word back 7 million casualties completely. Enemy and us, whatever happened. And he said, no. Harry Truman said, we're going to drop the bomb. It's not going to happen. Now, Roosevelt and Nimitz both agreed together. MacArthur said, bypass Iwo Jima. He wheeled up to the screen and he took his stick. And we knew what he was doing. He was near the Secretary of the Navy. And he pointed to a spot near Tokyo. He said, gentlemen, do you know where I'm pointing? Oh, they didn't know. Nimitz stood up. He said, "Sir, I believe you might be right around Iwo Jima." He said, "Exactly. I want that island." And Nimitz said, "Sir, I want that island too." MacArthur said, "Bypass. Too costly." Well, it was designed, and here they were forming it. My first regimental commander was Jimmy Roosevelt, who was also commander of the 3rd Marine Raider Battalion. It all broke up, so he came into the 5th. He had us, he helped organize us. Then all of a sudden, the old man called him to Washington. We never saw him again. Don't know what happened to him. But Harry the Horse Liversedge, Belleau Wood, First World War decorator, became my regimental commander. And he meant business. The 5th Division was designed to spearhead Iwo Jima, next to Suribachi, Green Beach 1, and secure Mount Suribachi. They knew that that was the focal point of all the firepower on every troop that ever hit the island. That's what we were designed to do. We never heard the word Iwo Jima. It was never, ever mentioned. We did not know where we were going until one day off the island. They brought models, clay models of the island. They told us everything, where we were going to go, what we were supposed to do. We went through the whole thing. And I said, "Lieutenant, how long do you think we'll be on that island?" He said, "Well, with God's speed and a little luck, you ought to be off in about a week." He said, "There's 8 square miles there, but we don't know much of anything else." Well, the next morning we got up for chow early, 5 o'clock in the morning. We slept topside on an LST. 6 Phidias tractors down below and a company of Marines topside. Everyone had that, and there were a lot of them. 3 divisions. Well, there it is out there. We have chow. And guess what they fed us? Steak and eggs. Now, I had eggs through the Marine Corps, cold storage. Some of them were 8, 9 months old. But steak, the Marine Corps never bought me a steak. You had to go on liberty to get a steak. So I said to a kid next to me, I said, "Hey, what's with the steak and eggs?" He said, "Graves, use your head. What did they do with convicts before they executed them?" "All hands down below, load your Phidias landing craft." We all went down. I had a man on my left, a man on my right. I had a 72-pound flamethrower on my back. I was an inch shorter then than I am now. And I was also a few pounds lighter. But it was on my back. And we waddled down the gangway, and there we are on the side of this amphibious tractor. No front entrance to go in. You went over the side, you came out over the side. And these 2 guys picked me up, and they got me up on the edge and shoved me right over in, and I went over in. I got myself squared where everybody loaded up. Out the gate we went, the mouth we went, and we rallied around the 28th Regiment. We were supposed to go in 3rd way at Green Beach 1, next to Suribachi, and secure Suribachi, join the rest of our division on the other side, and go towards the north. The 4th went in on the right by the airstrips to get that secure. The 3rd remained in reserve for about a week. Couldn't get them all on. So, we're in the amphibious tractor, he takes off. Every now and then I'd hear an explosion and they would hit one of our craft and take the entire load out. Fortunately, by the grace of God, I don't understand it all, but we were spared. We hit the beach. All hands overboard! And I said, all hands overboard. I'm going to get over this thing. So they picked me up again, shoved me over in the water. You never hit the beach, you always hit the water. And I got myself up, they grabbed me, we hit the first sandbar. There's 3 ridges to go over to get to the top. We soon learned that if you started running to the top and you tried to go over, you didn't go over. They stopped you. and we were pinned down on that beach. No place to go. But we knew this: if you want to get off the island, you've got to get off the beach and take the island. Little by little, we moved up. I lay on that first sandbar. Remember I told you I never went to church much? I lay there with my face in the sand, and for the first time I prayed. I really prayed to God Almighty. And I said, God, I don't know much about you, but if you can do for me what you've done for other people, and you get me off this island, I will serve you the rest of my life. He got me off, folks, 8 weeks later. But he didn't get me until 9 years after that. I'll close with that very shortly. I got up on my knees. They helped me up on my feet. We made it to the third top without getting hit, except my 2 buddies. They were gone. I didn't have anybody. It was a mess. We had 2 regiments entangled. So you had to ask a buddy, what outfit you in? What are you in, you know? So I got up on top and I turned left and I went in the first shell hole. Navy made the best foxholes a Marine ever crawled into. Custom made, all ready for you. 3 men. You couldn't dig a hole there. It caved right in on you. Well, I crawled in that hole, and there's another Marine there, facing Suribachi with his M1 pointed towards it. It's beginning to get sundown. That's how long it took. Do you know that Suribachi was 545 feet from the beach? We got there the 3rd day. 3rd day. Well, I said, hey Mac, what outfit you in? Never answered me. I reached over to grab him, move him, and I noticed then that his bottom half of his body was across the other side of the hole. I got out of that hole, went to the next one. I stayed the night there. When I got to the base, some kid yelled out, Graves, hold up. It was a buddy of mine. He got entangled from one regiment to another. He said, I'll be with you. I'll help you. I said, okay, good. So we fought together. We got to the base. It took us a whole day on the 3rd day to get up towards 3/4 towards the ridge. Now, our battalion commander told Lieutenant Gerald Schreier to get some boys when he got up there and put this flag up. He took it off a ship they was on. He wanted that flag up there. Well, when we heard what happened, I said, they'll never get it up. They don't have a mast. They didn't even have... Where did they get the flag? We don't know anything about a flag. Well, they got it up. They found drain pipe up there that the Japanese used to catch all the water that when it came and got it down into Suribachi in the caves. Well, let's not spend any time on the flag. It went up, it was glorious, it was a sight to behold, but all it did was infuriated the Japanese all the more, and they fought crazy. We took a day and spent up there, secured it. Then we came down the next morning. We went to Hill 362A. Ask any Marine if he knows where Hill 362A is on Iwo Jima, and if he knows, he'll say, I sure do. I lost my battalion there. We lost our officers there. It was slaughter. We finally secured it the next day, moved to the north. I'm going to tell you just 2 or 3 things before we close. The first episode I had, I was sitting in a hole with 2 machine gun squad leaders. We each had a squad, lost it. No men. We were down pretty nil. Gunny sergeants, buck sergeants were running the companies, the platoons, even corporals. And my phone rings, and it said, Graves. I said, yo. He said, company CP. I'm going to pass this word down along the line. Be on the lookout for snipers. I said, we don't have any sniper problem right now. He said, well, we do. First sergeant caught one around in his leg. They know where we're at. Be on the lookout, report to us. I said, 10-4. I took my glasses, took my flamethrower off, crawled up on my knees, And I got my elbows on the ground, looking around, just looking around. I would say for about 15 minutes. I saw nothing. And I dropped back down, slid back down, and I reported that I saw nothing, negative. They said, keep looking. By the way, you got a kid coming there for your replacement. He'll be there in 10 minutes. I said, 10-4, we can use it. 10 minutes later, he crawled in a hole and said, who's Graves? I am. What do you want me to do? Sit down over there. There'll be a lot to do when the evening comes. Well, they got on the horn. The kid heard that message again. He said, Graves, let me take a look. And I said, no, you get yourself shot. One of my buddies says, give him the glasses. He's here to fight. Use him. So I gave him the glasses. He got right up where I had been, right next to me. And he's looking. And we're just talking Marine talk. Then all of a sudden, he fell back. His helmet spun off his head. Went around a circle between my feet. It stopped. I looked down on that helmet. I saw a beautiful girl sitting in a chair. And on her lap was a beautiful little baby. I lost it. I got up. I shook my fist in the sky. And I said, curse Iwo Jima. Curse the Marine Corps. Listen, folks. And curse God for letting that kid take my place. We didn't understand. And we really didn't care about anything anymore. Well, my buddy got up, slapped me in the face, threw me on the ground, and I lay there, and it was crazy. I laughed. I just laughed until I stopped. Nobody said a word. We got up, I put my stuff back on, we moved to another hole. Now in that hole, that we spent a whole day there before we had to move. I said to my two buddies, we were just kids, I'm going to make some hot chocolate. Well, they said, make it up for the three of us. I said, okay. We all had ration bar, chocolate D-bars. Remember them? D-bars. We diced them babies up. I just made a nice little helmet liner of hot chocolate. I made a little fire with demolition. It was good. We sat there watching, waiting, and you could smell that hot chocolate. All of a sudden, I would say about from here out in the middle of that park right there. Hey, Marine, very good hot chocolate. You bring hot chocolate here. I said, if you want hot chocolate, you come here and get it. He said, oh, no, you bring here. Next one, we got word we're going to be released. One by one, we were released to go down to the beach. Our cemetery is down by the beach at the foot of Suribachi. It was. They asked if we moved them. All three were moved. All the bodies were exhumed, so they say. Well, one by one, we were released by the 3rd Division. Folks, I hit that beach with 335 of my buddies in my company. 6 weeks later, on the 31st of March, we walked down to the beach, 18 of us. No officers. Very few sergeants. Just a bunch of kids. Walked down to the beach by our cemetery. The old man was there, Liversedge. He said, men, I want you to line up in file and go through our cemetery before we board the Higgins and go on our transport and go back to Hilo, Hawaii and get ready for Japan. He said, I want you to go in and say goodbye to your officers and your buddies. One by one, we marched through that arch. And on the left side of the arch, and I will never forget this, on the left side of the arch, there was a sign hung there intact. And somebody wrote on it, and I've got a hunch, we don't know, but I think we actually believe that it was a CB. It said this. Every Marine looked at it and walked in. Fellas, when you go home, tell the folks we did our best, that they may have many more tomorrows. Fellas, ladies, all of you here, all of you, I tell this to high schools and junior high school. All of you, you've been enjoying those many more tomorrow, and you're not even aware of it. I wish these radicals in Washington and wherever they are would hear something like this and realize what happened and what people, young Marines, did for them. Kids, teenagers, young men. They love their country and love that flag that they hate. And we respected the Civil War. We respected the northern part because the two together made the greatest generation in the world. And it still is if we only own up to it and do something about it. That's the way we were. We got aboard the Higgins, went back to Hilo, Hawaii, trained for Japan. Japan surrendered. I went there in occupation for 3.5 months. Came back to Petaluma. They sent me to Great Lakes, Illinois, because I'm from Detroit, to be discharged. I went home. 6 months later, I got married to a little 4'10.5" gal. I was 21, she was 18. 6 months we were married. We're laying in bed one night in bed. It was hot in Detroit. That humidity was terrible. Month of August. I said, honey, would you like to make the Marine Corps a career? I wanted to go back in. She says, I wouldn't mind. I said, good. Got up the next morning, sold everything we had. And you can imagine what we had because all I got was $200 for everything. We took a Cadillac out to a dealership. And we got out there. The first morning we were there, we jumped a streetcar, went to L.A., Marine office upstairs. I walked in the doorway, Sergeant met me. He said, what can I do for you, Mac? And I said, I want to join re-up. He's got your papers, and here they are. He said, good, when can you leave? I said, tomorrow morning. Good. Hey, wait a minute, you're not married, are you? And I said, I got married 6 months ago. He said, I can't take you. We're not taking women in right now because they stopped the allotment checks. You'd make $72 to start. I don't know if you're going to make it. I don't think I'd do that. I said, thank you. Wait a minute, he said. You think she would she mind having a brief divorce? I said, I'll find out. Went out in the outer office. The sergeant was behind me looking out the door. She said, what did he say? I said, he wants to know if you go for a brief divorce. She said, let's go. Out the door, when I turned around, here's the sergeant. That was the end of my Marine Corps right there. Listen, I was invited to go to a Billy Graham Youth for Christ rally in Oshkosh, up along Lake Winnebago. But I wasn't in shape to go to any Christian meeting, I can tell you that. I've been fishing for them all day, and the fish just didn't bite, but the battle bass did. And I had a lot of battle bass, and I was in bad shape. Phone rang, my wife. We were ready for breakup or divorce. We weren't making it at all. It was mostly my fault. Phone rang. I heard her. I watched her talk. She hung it up, came over. She said, Mr. and Mrs. Beal would like to know if you'd take them over to Oshkosh to a Billy Graham rally. And I said, well, I don't have any use for Billy. I don't know anything about Billy. I don't want that. And I lay back down. So she walked away. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. I'm going to close with this. The phone rang again. I got up, grabbed the phone, I said, hello. He said, Donald, this is Peter Bilo. I said, yes, sir. I respected both of you and his wife. They were in their 80s, godly people. They helped us a lot. And I said, yes, sir. He said, don't say one word. I have something to tell you. I said, yes, sir. You are a mess. You're losing your wife. You're losing your best friends. And you're going to lose more. And you're going to lose yourself because you can't help yourself. You need help. You need to take us to this meeting tonight. Will you do it? I said, yes, sir. I'll change clothes and I'll be right over. God was beginning to remind me of something. Went over and picked him up, went to the high school, 2,700 people. They put me in the front row, right by the stage. All of a sudden, the scream started, and the crusade started. And the one thing I remember, Billy came out, started, and he pointed his finger. And he looked like he was talking to me. He looked like his finger was right at me. He said, you went out your own, you bought with a price. And that price was Jesus Christ on Calvary. What were you do with Christ? What were you do with God his Father? He paid for the sins of the whole world. Your life is a mess. You can't help yourself. You can't do anything for yourself. You need to come tonight. You come tonight. You come. Later on, the film stopped. Old preacher got up on the stage and he said, we're going to have a song of invitation. And he said, while we're singing, you feel the need for Christ. Walk up to the front, we'll pray for you, give you a Bible, some scripture, and send you home. I paid no attention to it. They started singing, and it was beautiful. And then I just fell out of my seat and on the floor, and I cried, and I confessed everything I had done. I said, God, I used you as a rabbit's foot. I used you as a scapegoat. I'm sorry. I'm a hypocrite, a liar. I'm no good. And I began to pour everything out. Then all of a sudden, the preacher said, normally when we get through doing this, we would send you home. But I know that you're there, and you need Christ in your life, and we're going to do it the last time, and when we're through, we're going home. You come up here. We want to talk to you. I said, if they sing it again, I'll go up. They started singing. I got up on my feet, and a voice said to me, this is no pipe dream. Sit down, you fool. What about your wife? And I said, this isn't going to work. It's just not going to work. I turned around and looked at my wife. She's sitting there watching me. She got up, walked over to me, took my hand, and she said, let's both walk up. We walked up to the front. They prayed for us, gave us scripture. I paid not much attention at all. I was talking of God. I was pouring my heart out. He got a hold of me. He beat me up like a father that loved his son. That's what God did to me. He put me in the ministry for 32 years, serving 5 churches and evangelism and prison work and homeless work. I had a full-time ministry. I left my last church at 82 years old because my wife got very ill with dementia and cardiovascular. Get this, the second best thing that ever happened to me. My daughter called. They lived in Keller here. We were in Tucson, Arizona. She said, Dad, we can't keep flying every time Ma has a fall or something happens to her. You've got to bring her here. We have a lot of facility here. I said, move to Texas? She said, yes, you've got to come here. Resign. You're not going to move any mountains anymore. I said, okay, I'll do it. I resigned from the church. We moved to Keller, Texas. I met Laura Leopard, Tom Leopard, the mayor of Dallas. Laura and I became friends. I came to one of her meetings and they sang the national anthem. She said, Don, would you like to go out speaking? And I said, yes. We teamed up for a while, but her work, daughters of World War II, became so critical that she gave up on it. Then I met Paul, and that's how we teamed up. The greatest thing that happened to me was encounter faith in Jesus Christ, the Son of God. The second was to move to Texas. And if you're a Texan, give yourself an applause. And God bless America. Can you hear me out there?
Yes.
All right. Stand up and sing with me, will you? Let's sing Kate Smith's song. God bless America. Let's sing it. God bless America. we had him come out here. Oh, just a second, please.
Get in touch with me.
If I was still in the car, I'd be on report right now. I hope you enjoy that as much as we did. And one thing I would like to mention also, my wife, Glenn, was here with us today, and her father was in the 4th Marine Division there in Iwo Jima. So I know that for our family, this has meant a lot. So I would like to give you a certificate of appreciation to thank you for your being here today and for your inspirational talk with us today. And then also, we have a small remembrance for you.
Next time you drink coffee, think of us.
Nothing in it? I'll take care of that. Thank you.
Before you go, because I know he's got a word to say. Paul's got to say a couple words. They do this out of the goodness of their heart, but they also have a cause, which he's going to talk about, called roll call. And they feed veterans. Now, I want to be the first to make a contribution to roll call.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And I would like to get second.
Well,
No, you're the third.
do I hear third?
He wants to see that show check.
Good. Let's handle this one. All right. Good. You're a fine group. This is the second group I was with. I hope they can't hear me. I like this a little better.
He's always a troublemaker.
Okay.
Watch.
Just tell them how this place started a little bit.
Okay, I will.
Yeah. You do that, thanks.
Yeah, he's not.
Let him sit down. He's a tough act to follow. Do y'all agree?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, very much.
I will tell you one thing, just kind of a follow-up on what was already said. We have been doing this for about 3 years now. 4 years ago, there was an organization started in Fort Worth. There was a gentleman that had taken some World War II vets to Washington. And when they had a good time and came back, said, why don't we have lunch together next month? They did. 4 of them. And after that, it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it ended up, it's called roll call. And what we do is every penny that Don and I take in donation goes to pay for feeding veterans lunch. On the last Friday of every month, we have anywhere from, well, let me just tell you the numbers. The last 4 months, we have had, listen to these, World War II veterans, 45 to 50 of them. We also have had about the same number of Korean vets, and I'm a Vietnam veteran, and we have about 100 of us. We also have a bunch of the Iraq, Afghanistan, some of the more current conflicts, and we feed those guys and gals every month. And it's our pleasure to be able to do this. And it's, you know, as he said, that we're dedicated. And I was given the authority to pass the basket around if any of you would feel led to be of help to us, because it takes money to do this. It takes us $3,500 every month to do this. But we appreciate anything you can do for us. And I've got a picture back there. I thought I'd bring it up here. It'd be too clumsy to do, but there's a picture of 66 World War II veterans in that picture. And we're proud of what we do, because these vets deserve our help to feed them once a month for what they've done for our country. Yes, sir.
What's the location?
It's at Fort Worth, Texas. It's at Birchman Baptist Church. I've got some cards back there. In fact, I got one listed here. I'll just kind of give you a heads up. On the top of the card, it says rollcall.org. If you want to donate with PayPal, you can do that. My contact information is here on the lower left. We've got videos on the lower right-hand side. But if any of you guys, we can't keep doing what we're doing without help. And any of you guys that have contact with organizations, groups, it don't matter. We go out. We spoke to 5 high schools last year, and we had the least number of students we had was 600 in front of us. We had 1,200, 1,500, 2,000, and 2,800 students. And that's what we love to do. These kids don't have a clue what you guys stand for and what we stand for and for our vets. Yes, sir.
What I wanted to say was that the primary purpose is to get these guys away from their apartment, get them out of their rooms, because a lot of them are alone. They're all alone, you know, and you should hear them in their camaraderie. They can't stop talking.
Yeah.
They love it.
So, thank you very much, and I'll go ahead and start this around if we could. And we'd appreciate anything that y'all can do for us. Appreciate it. Pleasure to be with you.
And Paul, we do appreciate you being here today and for what you've had to say and tell us our role, and also your role in bringing down with us today. We would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation, as well as a mug.
The famous mug.
The mug, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's on the back table, they did bring some pictures and some literature and stuff. So as you're leaving today, make sure you stop back. Please do. Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Don. Good to see you again, my friend. Interesting to know, when I first met these two gentlemen back in February, Paul and I had a brief conversation. He was involved with honor flight. And I think a lot of people in the audience will remember where a friend of mine came and talked to us last year about honor flight, Terry Cason. So, hi to you from Terry.